So just a little bit about us. I'm pretty sure you guys will be wondering what's techractive, right? So it was just the story goes we're a bunch of geeks actually from Interactive. So Ika, Kaushik, Fabian, and I we decided like one day we just came together and thought, oh, we like to build. The vision that we had was that we wanted to bring together a community that's interested in technology. We like to discuss important technology trends, right, that are actually shaping the way we live even as the times progress. So the mission that we have, right, in this in setting up this community, right, and this platform is firstly to build a community of software developers and digital enthusiasts who are passionate about technology just like us. We also want to use this platform, right, and this community to discuss those important trends and topics in the technology space, right, and also to help guide young technologists and even to grow in our walk together as technologists in this as we grow together in this space. Yeah. So next slide.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's go with the topic. So today's topic, again, it's called COVID-19 and its impact on the customer experience. So let me just give an introduction on the next slide. So with COVID becoming the new normal, right, customer expectations of digital experience are vastly changing from the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, right, such as having fitness exercises online, chatting with friends become like an online experience, and even sometimes you could say like, oh, your club experiences are also going online. And as I quote a story from Eugene, he sees his mom shopping in the supermarket via Bitmart. So really things are vastly changing. And I would like to just before we jump into the topic, right, I'd like to introduce our speakers. So today we have two distinguished speakers, Iker and Kaushik. So Iker is our managing director of a growth market build experience in Accenture Interactive, and he has 2 decades of success in driving large-scale and complex digital transformation. So he's also a strong advocate for inclusivity in Accenture Interactive, and he kind of fosters with us like an open, inclusive environment that enables entrepreneurship, experimentation, and innovation. So outside of work, a little bit of fun fact, Ika is also a fitness enthusiast and had been on a secret project with a personal trainer to keep himself fit.
Yeah.
Hey guys, very happy to be here. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the session today and the ones that you have prepared for the future.
Awesome. Yeah. And thanks, Ika, for coming and to join us here for event. I think for our very next speaker, we have Mr. Kaushik Das. So Kaushik is our head of custom solutions and full stack engineering. So he's pretty much our tech whiz in Interactive. So he's also the lead enterprise architect. So all the tough problems go to Kaushik, of course, because he's the most technical guy that we all know. Yeah. So a little bit about Kaushik as well, his personal life, right? He's very much like a tinkerer. So he loves to experiment with stuff, right? So I think one of the cool things that about Fabian and Kaushik was that they built this app to connect local hawkers to buyers like us who were stuck at home during COVID-19. So during circuit breaker, you can actually use this app called Makan Places at makanplaces.sg, doing a little promotion for you guys. Yeah, and they actually connect people like us to hawkers. So yeah, I think you really love these two speakers that we have lined up for today. So Kaushik, would you like to say a few words?
Hey, thanks for inviting me. Appreciate that, and I think I'm looking forward for this discussion. Yeah.
Cool, nice. Thanks for joining us, man. Okay, next slide, please. So yeah, I think now we will jump into the topic, right? So today's topic we'll be talking about COVID-19 and its impact on customer experience. So just to give a brief run through of this. The agenda for today, right? We will be actually covering how the landscape is changing for digital penetration in a COVID-19 world. So how offline to online channels are being disrupted and how customer experience and many other things, right, that are coming to the forefront, and how businesses and technologists even should leverage on that. The next thing we will be talking about is how we'll be deep diving into that. So in terms of technologies, how sticky are these solutions that are coming up? How will they retain their relevance in a post-COVID world? And we'll be rethinking the launch of products as well. Then after that, we'll be discussing some key takeaways that I think we all want to leave with, right? Some nuggets of truth that we can carry on in our journey as technologists and as businesses. And we'll have some personal sharing of to find out more about the lives of Ika and Kaushik on what they do, what and how they in their daily lives, and how they embrace technology as well. And we can go into a session of Q&A where you guys will pretty much have many questions lined up for our speakers here. So we're really excited to hear what you guys have to say, your views, your questions, all of them. Yeah. So Fabian, you ready for the next part of the session?
Yeah, sure. Let's go. So just on any questions and answer, if you have any of them, go to menti.com and use the code that is on the top of this screen. It will be on this screen, will stay on here, and key in all your burning questions there. So let me just give a bit of the context, right? Like with this rapid shift to digital that's been accelerated in 2020, there's a lot of brands that we see that sees a monumental opportunity to create like new revenue streams, meet new customers, and also capture to really capture this 10 trillion e-commerce market that is poised to triple by 2027 to 27 trillion. So I know Kaushik, I know you have been on an interesting project in Thailand to build like a retailer e-commerce platform for a conglomerate. Maybe let's kickstart and you could elaborate some insights about this project.
Sure, Fabian. So I think you're referring to the large retail project which I was running for almost last 2 years, I think. So I think very interesting fact, right? So I think before COVID, we were actually trying to. So this project, right? So the client actually has both offline experience and online experience, and we were trying to actually build a complete MarTech solution. But at the same time, we were trying to drive consumers from online to offline because the experience was offline. So it's slightly different from traditionally how you do, where you offline to online. Here we were trying to do online to offline, and then COVID happened, right? And it's so funny because after that, like we actually have to now relook into how we have been thinking about online to offline, but now we were looking at how do I actually bring user back and how do I actually provide them those services. So we actually started looking at actually before COVID we were trying to do marketing based on locations, based on user actually going to a mall and doing something out there, right? And their interaction within a mall. But once COVID came in and we started looking into alternatives, we started looking at how do I bring a platform for the client to actually help them still continue their business, right? While they're still continuing and struggling out there. So I think that's the very important part, how we are actually building these platforms to help them, right, in a way. So one interesting thing we did over there was completely transform their digital transformation, digital business to complete agile. We started doing from from complete design to build to deploy in a month actually. So we would actually start doing a design for 1 week, build for 2 weeks, unit test for within that 2 weeks, and then UAT and release for within a month, right? So within a month you are basically going and deploying and releasing things, and you are so agile because if you think of it, COVID was changing the whole business rapidly, and based on that we were able to actually help them on this. So that's on the business side. But if you recall, early 2020 when COVID just hit, there was like how today this whole check-in part, right, where you go into a mall and you are checking in, right? It's quite normal today. But early 2020, it was not, right? we at that time, government and clients, everyone was trying to figure this out. And I still recall there was one of those Thursday, I got a call from one of our clients and said, "Hey, we need to build this COVID check-in app where you can actually check in whenever somebody comes in, and I need to record it." So I was like, "Okay, sure, but how do I mean, how long do I have?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's on Thursday, and Monday I need to get this done because uh, so I was like, okay, so your current infrastructure, it's a complete enterprise solution, and if you guys have worked on enterprise solution, there's a lot of thought process around it, how data is managed, how different SaaS platforms goes and talks to each other, right? And we started thinking about how do I even build this, right? So we actually use complete Google Cloud Platform, GCP, and Firebase to actually build this out in literally 5 days to be able to scale it for any number of people coming to a mall, and we're actually checking in and doing it. But I mean, whatever it takes, right? I mean, end of the day, if you think of it, it's a lot of impact, both from a business as well as human life, right? So I think there are a couple of those things I think which has happened on that project. Yeah. Over there. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah. So I think it seems that there's like that very much because of COVID, right? Things happen so quickly, right? Then there was such an like quick turnaround time. Like we need to push products out faster than we even could have thought of before COVID. So I think that's where this whole design, build, test, run, all these become much more integrated. I think that's where a lot of things such as CI/CD technologies, DevOps things, all these come into play. I think that's something that we will probably cover later on further into this session as well. Like how, in terms of like the whole business of experience, like it's not just about the customer, but it's also about every single end user down your whole delivery chain. Yeah, I think those are some important points, right? I think that we should actually consider, as we think about this idea of disruption and customer experience. So I think those were really good points actually. Moving to Ika, right? I believe that as Kaushik was sharing there, these examples, I'm pretty sure there have been some other implementations, right, that we have seen in other projects in other countries as well. So what I mean by that is, like, for example, if we look at the Middle East, right, you see a shift in traditional industries moving towards, like, for example, the airline, the travel industries. They're moving towards personalization of experience online, more than the offline channels even. So do you have any cool examples that you can bring in from these kind of travel industries?
Yeah, thanks, Eugene. I think, look, the travel industry is probably one of those that is, is the obvious victim, right, in the whole COVID situation. If you look at our life now, I used to be easy 100 flights in the normal year, right? And I haven't stepped on a plane in 16, 15 months now, which is something absolutely bizarre for me, right? But if you look at these industries, retail, that Kaushik was mentioning earlier, and travel, they have been really completely disrupted, right? So they are inherently physical. There's no substitution for the physicality of travel. You really have to be there, right? And that has forced these organizations to really fast track a lot of the thinking in terms of how can they use technology to really keep alive, really enable things that actually now are far more complex than they used to be. And if I'll get back to your Middle East point in a second, but I wanted to make a few reflections on the complexity that now we are dealing with when we think of solutions for the travel industry. So look at the act of buying a ticket to go somewhere, right? It used to be a single player journey. I log into the website, whether it's your favorite airline. I just book my ticket, I pay, and I'm done, right? I just deal with one player, and the airline probably deals with themselves, right, or their booking or their inventory management system to really issue that ticket, and off you go, right? That is all the interaction. That is as complex as the experience gets. And now you look at airlines that are really investing heavily in making digital a little bit of a solution to the problem that we have at hand, and now you have to deal with an intersection with medical providers, people that are providing you with a COVID test, a PCR test, and those results. and making sure that they are from the right source and they have the right credibility, etc. So now there is an ecosystem that comprises healthcare providers on top of the airline itself. You have to deal with immigration authorities, government authorities that are continuously changing their regulations on who can come in, what are the requirements, depending on where you come from, where have you been, right? So now something that was very simple as a one-stop shop now becomes a whole ecosystem of players you need to integrate with. So there is a whole lot of complexity on integration that now is super important. There is an incredible amount of collaboration across an ecosystem that simply did not play together before. They didn't need to, right? And now it's an absolute must. So that has been a huge amount of disruption, but at the same time, a huge amount of thinking power that has gone into how can we make this happen? How can we not let this stop us, right? And there are really cool things happening out there. I mean, you see the whole COVID test now automated. You book your test on arrival. You can even deal in some countries, I think in Australia, you can even book the hotel in which you're going to do the quarantines through the whole booking process. So you can see that as a very complex journey, right? So I think that's an interesting one. Going back to the example on Middle East, I think, yeah, you're right. So we're working with one of the big airlines in the Middle East in a really large scale sort of digital factory where we are working in a number of very, very cool ways to really personalize the experience, not only just the booking, but really when things go wrong. How can we serve you when there is a disruption? If you think about disruption right now, when things are so fluid, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, change border regulations come. If you live in Singapore, like some of us do, we just shut down the borders again, like literally last week. So this whole thing is so fluid, right? That the concept of disruption is no longer, oh, there is a delay, I miss my connection. It's actually something far more normal, and you have to coordinate so many players. Your stay-home notice, your test on arrival, all these things need to be aligned to. I cannot make it on my flight anymore, right? Another interesting example I wanted to use is from a different airline. Is actually on disruption or when something goes wrong. Imagine that you have a connecting flight and your original flight is delayed for whatever reason, and you're going to miss your connection. Typically what airlines will do is they just give you a solution, and it's this one, and you take it or leave it, right? And you're stranded somewhere, and they have decided that it's great that you spend 20 hours in the airport until the next flight comes. And maybe that's not ideal for you, and that's not a great experience, right? So one project we did with another airline in APAC, in the Asia region, is creating a chatbot that really manages those disruptions. So creates a number of options that are feasible. Either you want to go, you want to be routed through another intermediate destination. It's a bit of a longer trip, but you'll get home today. Or we'll book you in a hotel and you spend the day here. So whatever number of options, right? And the chatbot really puts you in control of that experience, puts you in control of what happens. So I think it's a really cool use of technology, again, in an environment, in a moment that we are living in where, disruption is just part of it now, right? There's so much discontinuity happening around us, and really using technology to make sure that the experience can carry on, things can still happen, and things can happen in a way that complexity that can be a little bit overwhelming becomes manageable again. So I think that's sort of some reflections I wanted to make on what we see happening in travel specifically, which is one of the most impacted industries on COVID, right?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. And so just kind of like a recap, right? Based on what Kaushik and what Ika said, right? Feels like we are really focusing on this experience layer, where in the retail world we are focusing on like how we can build this whole retail experience online to bring the customers back to the mall, while traditionally they are served offline. And then in travel, right, we're really reimagining like things like how do we deal with like their disruptions, how do we deal with all the offline check-in services in the more seamless manner. And both of you come up with like also a good point about how this data layer and the technology behind it, which we all know that there are a lot of legacy systems that we have to deal with, and how and that it's a challenge to kind of bring these things to life. So back to kind of technological questions, right? We just wanted to go one level below the experience layer. Kaushik, for some of this next gen tech that you have kind of brought to life for the clients, right? What are some of the adoption that you see for these technologies?
Yeah. So A lot of things are changing, right? I mean, end of the day, I think we are all trying to, like Ika mentioned, rapidly, a lot of things are just changing, right? And we are trying to normalize it in a way, if you think of it. And a lot of my examples are probably on the retail side, because I think that's like travel. Retail is the biggest, I think the second biggest one which got impacted, right, for COVID. We were doing one for this one is for South Africa. We were doing for one of the larger e-commerce retail client over there, and they actually had a complete digital platform for almost 15 years, or almost like that, right? Like they already had a pretty good e-commerce platform, but how they were actually leveraging it was more like offline first, right? And online was their secondary part of it. So they would typically use it as, yeah, I mean, it was in South Africa, but they were typically trying to use it as, maybe offline is my, lower priority, and sorry, online is my lower priority and offline is my highest priority, right? So that's how it has been always. But I think with COVID coming in, like every other business, they understood that, right? And I think the first point which we were trying to solve for them was their business has a lot of beauty products. And if you know, right, like beauty products are very hard to buy online, right? Like a lipstick, for example, or a face makeup or something like that, right? So we were trying to solve that. And for me, what we tried doing is we, rather than reinventing the wheel, and we need to deploy it very quickly, right? So we started looking at what options do we have where we can use augmented reality to actually help people actually try it out online, and then use it over there. So I think we tried few platforms, and one of the platforms we tried was Perfect Corp. So this company actually works with a lot of other retailers as well, like a lot of other brands, and they also have, how they actually train their machine learning is they even have mobile apps on your app store and Play Store where people can actually take selfies and do some makeups on their selves, right? But they also have a solution where you can literally take it as a JavaScript or an SDK and deploy it on e-commerce or all these websites, and you could actually try out a lipstick or a makeup directly online. And a lot of companies were doing it, right? I mean, it's not a new technology, but I think the part was it was impacting their business, right? I think that's very important. How we actually managed to do it. The other thing we tried solving over there was can we so if you know, lot of the brands and companies who sells cosmetic, they do this free consulting, right? And you would actually walk to the store and they will do consulting. By the way, I learned from my wife all of this, so I did a lot of research with my wife for this. So they do a lot of online consulting, right? So we actually tried building this as a solution as well. And of course, if you try to build a consulting service, you would actually, if you just break it down into smaller pieces, you need to have your queuing mechanism, your calendar, your meeting. It's a large solution. How do you do it very quickly? Calendly. I mean, you guys probably have heard about it many times. Super easy solution, right? So something to try out, do a POC, and to see if people are actually getting impacted. So I think that was the important part, to get something out to the people and to the business to see if something can be built very quickly and tried it out. Yeah.
Maybe just to add to that, Kaushik, I think the main point is, I mean, you were naming it, right? E-commerce is probably the biggest winner at the same time. So it was the big challenge in the industry, in retail, and then all of a sudden we have all this absolute flooding of e-commerce needs, right? Because that's the survival, right? So yeah. So you take it, and COVID is really a transformational force, and it has transformed two things. It has transformed, businesses that may have been a little bit reluctant to get online, or certain parts of businesses that were a little bit more difficult. Like the example you mentioned is a really beautiful one, right? And also it has changed consumer habits. I mean, if I look at what I used to buy, or the sort of analysis I look around on, and the trends that we see, is that there were certain products that are easy to buy online, and there are products that are a bit more difficult, and those that require fitting That is the one thing that is just so difficult to do online, whether it's clothing, whether it's, beauty products, makeup, whether it's furniture as well. And I think you have an example as well. So COVID has been the one that really has brought people together on, look, we are now ready to buy those things online because we have no option. And businesses are ready to invest in try things and be brave enough to experiment with the solution you guys were trying out in South Africa and many others, right? And I think to the point you guys were raising on technologies and what is here to stay, I think COVID has been a really good catalyst of the whole extended reality, you call it augmented, virtual, whatever flavor of it you want. But I think that is a huge catalyst of this becoming a mainstream reality, embedded into very little micro experiences, like you trying that lipstick or how is this piece of furniture going to fit in my living room, right? And so I think that has been quite a push for certain aspects of e-commerce that we're having to go through the resistance of fitting, right? And now that is a reality.
Yeah. And for that, actually, very interesting point. So, the IKEA app, which has the augmented reality for furnitures, I have it for almost 3 years, I think now, or more than that, from the very beginning of when they have. But I never purchased with it. But this was the first time I actually put it on my living room, actually bought a chair and a sofa actually using it, right? Because we cannot go, right? And definitely, I think that push has actually made us think and use it, right? And it is pretty good actually, and it fit properly, right? And if you guys are on iOS, you would see that Apple actually have this measuring app, right? Which you can actually measure anything on augmented reality now. The new version, actually, you just put it over there. It figures out the edges. It will do the measurements for you. Everything with this whole LiDAR technology coming in, it's moving very rapidly and very, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, if I can take away from what you guys have said, right, it's just that it's not that hard nowadays. Even if you want to play around with these technologies, right, you want to move online, right, it's the SDKs, the technologies are all very ready for you to plug and play, and you can create a simple proof of concept in a matter of a few days. Yeah, so I think I love the fact that that we've come to the topic of augmented reality, right? I mean, this is something that probably is getting more and more popular nowadays. I think back to Iker, I believe we have some things in the Middle East, I think, where in the luxury car space, so you can even purchase a luxury car online. Do you want to share more on that? Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really good one as well. I mean, who would have thought that you could, not only that you would actually want to buy a car online, right? I mean,
Exactly.
if you go back 15 months before this whole thing started, I mean, it's probably one of the last things that is a very physical, sensorial thing. I want to sit in it. I want to know how I feel in it, right? And it's very difficult to recreate that level of interaction. It's 3D. It's something that is around you, spatial, right? So it's very difficult to recreate. And we've been working with one of the luxury brands in Middle East, and I was just looking on the attendees, so I see some of the guys that actually have done this themselves, attending the session. So I hope I do you guys justice with the explanation, but we have really enabled the whole end-to-end purchase of the car, the whole virtual experience of looking at it, of configuring it. It's beyond a configurator online. It's really a whole e-commerce suite that enables you to browse, to understand, to really visualize the car, to really see all different options and combinations of them, and really buy online is the whole end-to-end experience, right? And that is a bit of a lifesaver when you look at how affected car dealerships were in the lockdown and in the months that they'll led until we could reopen those physical spaces, right? So that's a really interesting experience as well. Yeah.
Amazing use cases. So I see, because we do have some Gen Y audiences here. So maybe just on this use case, right? Do you guys have any like maybe relatable social media use cases that you have done? Maybe something related to Instagram, Facebook. Some technologies that we have used some of those social media platforms.
Sorry, Fabian, this question for me?
I think so.
Okay. I don't recall one doing it here right now, but one thing I can just adding to Iker's point, right? So from the auto industry, actually, just thought of one more example where we were doing this. It's in Indonesia, actually. We were trying to create the same experience for auto industry for second-hand cars as well. And I mean, pre-COVID, you would think, why would you even think building that? But I think makes sense. People have been actually looking at it, and we're looking at 360 view of the car from inside and how you can actually shape it and all. So those things I think we tried doing as well. Just to add to that, yeah. So there are few interesting case studies for those. Yeah.
Interesting, really, really interesting. Thanks for sharing all those experiences across the region. I think it's been new to a lot of people, right? Maybe coming to a bit on the launching of product, right? Especially, I think Kaushik, you mentioned a bit on the 4 phases of the delivery, from the planning to the design, all the way to build and running. And our end state is always looking at helping the company deliver end product to their user with the best experience and the best technology possible. But with COVID-19, right, the traditional ways of delivering, especially with introduction of remote working, is going to be outdated, and there's going to be a lot of the changes. So I know Ika, Kaushik, you guys have worked with so many regions, so many companies, and there are so many different methodologies. Would you like to share a little bit more details?
Yeah, maybe I'll start with a few more high-level thoughts on this, and maybe Kaushik, you can then get it more into the tech and delivery space. So I think one of the things that I would say on this space that has really been accelerated through COVID is we were very used to delivering products, right? And if you look at how we structured our agile delivery, our digital factory typical construct of, our squads and whatnot, right? It was basically focused on a lot of the build side, the software development part, with a little bit of design around it, right? And it's just what the product is about. I think what has happened is we really realized, and this is the point on business of experience that you guys were mentioning earlier, right? One of the things that COVID has accelerated is the need for everyone to be a business that provides experiences. No matter what your industry is, whether you're a bank, whether you're a car dealer, you ultimately provide an experience to your customers. That is your ultimate product, right? So really, organizations understanding that need really evolves what we understand as a product and what products need to look like and do, right? So we no longer just design and build, and our digital factories or product delivery factories are no longer that, are actually experience factories. And you need to design those products, you need to develop them and build them, but you also need to communicate them, all the branding, all the communication aspect, all the marketing messaging that goes with it, activates the product in the market. And then you need to those experiences, you need to operate them, you need to make sure that they operate on what they are expected to, right? So I think it provides on that dimension a much more complex and much more holistic view of experience becomes a product. And the other dimension is just that in order to do that, I think that there are 2 main needs. One is speed. So the speed at which things are happening. You guys were half joking about tricking app in 3 days, but I mean, we all know that we've had to do a number of those things. And there was the other COVID app that happened in 5 days, literally. So we were given 5 days until the app was in the Google Play Store, right? And that was one of the things that. So that is probably an extreme case that will never become the norm. But the need to really understand consumer needs, how they change so quickly, and react to that, and come up with an idea that you can quickly design, build, test, deploy, and operate and market is just the name of the game, right? So I think those are the sort of 2 dimensions I wanted to share, and maybe Kaushik, you wanna take it from there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely agree on the speed, but I think what I've seen is some of our clients who have already thought of a very good CI/CD and how to do the deployment and all. Actually, the transformation was not very difficult because they are already doing a lot of automation testing and everything. So it was slightly easier for them. The difficult part was where the clients where they don't have those infrastructure, so you have to go and start building them and putting it out. It's again technically possible, but it takes time, right? It just takes a bit of time to actually set it up. But yeah, but on the other side of things, right? I mean, this is where how we are impacting businesses, right? Now, if I just flip that, right? So from a delivery point of view, I think we all know that the biggest change has happened is remote working. So the example which you told about this 5 days launch a COVID app. If this was, I think, April and May last year, and I just realized once we got it done, we actually had 50 people across 4 countries working day and night over video calls to build it, right? And it has never happened before. It has never happened before, and COVID made us make it do it, right? And it was wonderful. I mean, we were all down to. I mean, it's crazy, right? But end of the day, if you think of it, the impact it has done for probably millions of people, right? 20 million plus people who has got benefit out of it. It's just wonderful, right? But it is possible because technology is there. We were able to actually communicate. We were able to build that platform and everything, right? I think just looking at it, it's just amazing. Yeah.
And I just wanted to add a couple more points on that, Kaushik. I think one is is something that we have actually learned. I think it is never learning because that's always been the case, but has really become very, very clear and very prominent. Is the fact that when people have a purpose, there's just no limit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can do anything. It's just there's no boundaries, there's no limits to what we can achieve, right? And I remember that night, I remember getting that phone call at 10:30 p.m. as I was getting in bed, and I just jumped off and said, "Let's do this. It's going to be amazing." And it was an amazing experience, right? And when you have that sense of purpose that you're actually contributing to something really important and really much bigger than what we can normally do, I think that's a really cool thing, right? And also I think making a reflection on COVID and just the title of this session, right? I think more and more we realize that us that work in technology, we really have a tremendous amount of influence in how the world operates, in solving problems that are really important, that are really human, right? Yeah. And when you work in the intersection of technology and experience, it's just even more so, right? Experience is very human by nature, and I think it's really an amazing space to be in. And the other reflection I wanted to make is funny enough, when we all went home, I mean, for those of you that are from outside Accenture, we are more than 500,000 people around the world. So when you say everyone goes home, it's a pretty big migration, right, to do overnight, and it happened, right? I mean, we have all the infrastructure, everything is cloud and all that stuff, but one of the things that I was a little bit worried about is how is this going to impact all our projects? I mean, we are running literally tens of thousands of projects around the world. So how is this going to impact us? And one of the big learnings for me was that the more mature projects were in their use of Agile, the less impacted they were. And I remember this project review with the team in which the team were, this is April or May, it really at the heat of the first wave of COVID in the world, right? It's a project in Southeast Asia. And the team were worried that they were having a 4% impact in velocity because they are now home and decisions are a little bit slower with the client. And I'm like, guys, listen to yourselves. The world is fighting a war against this virus and you have a 4% impact in productivity. I'll take it any day. It's just that's the amazing, nature of this way of working, right? And it proved to be an amazing way to keep us resilient, to really cope with whatever we had to, right? Having people all over the world. And now, for good or for bad, we are a global workforce and we work on projects that are, all over the place. And that's a beautiful thing as well, right? Because it gives us opportunities to work with others, to understand other cultures. And the other thing that comes to mind, one of the reflections I make with some of my colleagues is that we are further apart from each other than we've ever been, right? I mean, we no longer meet in the office, we're missing the human contact and all of that. But at the same time, I think there is much more intimacy in the relationships because I've been to all of you guys' homes without being there. I've seen your living room. I know your wives, your children, your pets, your husbands, So we all have now this sort of familiarity that's actually a cool and heartwarming thing. So I don't know, I just wanted to throw that out there because I think it's one of the impacts as well of all this crazy period that we are living in, right?
True. Yeah,
so I think you guys have said so much that they are so impactful, man. So I think I believe for the sake of our audience, how about we give them like 3 key takeaways from each of you, right? Like simple one sentence that they can hold on to in their journey.
Ikar, you want to go first? Or
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe I think my takeaways on this whole thing is that experience is becoming the number one product very clearly for a number of reasons, right? I think we are all humans, and the fact that we are stripped apart of a lot of the things that we crave as humans, like the physical contact, the being able to meet our families, to socialize, to travel, all of that is taken away from us. And all we have is this screen in front of us, right? So I think that kind of like makes us crave more for experiences and really brings the human aspect into how we consume products. And that is one of the things that I think so. Experience is the number one product. That is my takeaway. When it comes to how do we deliver that? I think the need for speed, the need for agility as a broader concept is really important. It's not just so much about how fast can we develop this feature and deploy it, in production so people can use it. It's the whole mindset of how can we really stay in touch with what people need? What is the purpose? What is the problem we are solving, right? Solve for the human problem and really be very, very quick in understanding the need, formulating a hypothesis, designing for it, and building all the way to deployment, right? So really solving for the human need with agility. So maybe I'll just give you two, right? Experience is the product and agility is the name of the game.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I just want to add two more things on top of it. I think for me, again, being a very techie guy, two things. I think first one for me is whenever I'm looking at solutions now, the whole security and personal data is becoming more and more important for every platform, right? All these quick solutions we are doing, we should not forget about the human part of it. So I stress a lot on that on all my solutions, and it's something we need to continue doing it. I know a lot of people have started looking at it. And the other part is the human aspect of the guys who are actually working, right? So the mental health of the people, the amount of time, because when we go out of our house and we go to office, at least we are interacting with a lot of people, right? And this whole lockdown, there is a lot of mental stress around it. And I also realize that a lot of people gets impacted from their personal life as well. There are people on their family who's probably sick, right? And that part, I think we as human, we have to actually start looking at it. And very interesting thing, I think in Accenture we do follow this no meetings Friday thing, so which is pretty cool. But yeah, I guess those are the two important things for me to look out in COVID. Yeah. All right, over to you, Eugene.
Cool. Yep. I think so. I think we've learned so much from Kaushik and Ika, right? Yeah. So I think now would be the time where you guys have many burning questions. I'm really seeing many cool questions that are coming up. Yeah. So Fabian, do you have some questions that you want to bring up first?
Yeah. Okay. So there is one question here by anonymous, and okay, it's open for both of you. So what do you predict, in your opinion, would be the most burning, trending types of applications that customer will need once COVID impacts dies down?
COVID impact dies down.
Well, I can tell you the ones I'm going to be using definitely. Whatever smells travel.
Yeah, but I think now that we have moved into this whole e-commerce, like we are like ordering our food on groceries and everything through e-com. I don't think we are going to go back to that old flow, right, where we are walking to a store I think most of us, by the time we are finishing COVID, we'll be more digitalized in a way. So I'm pretty sure the whole food delivery, the whole e-commerce, I think wherever that percentage of impact and the increase has happened now, it is going to be there. It's not going to change, and we'll keep on doing it. Yeah,
definitely. And if so, what we're going to see is these things becoming a little bit more capillary and granular, right? So if you look at, for example, food delivery or grocery shopping, it tends to be the bigger players that are part of that ecosystem, right? But we have really good examples. I've seen some of our colleagues from LATAM here. There's a very cool thing that I think we did in Brazil which really connects, individuals with businesses in their neighborhood. So the whole hyper-local thing, right? Really enabling people to consume products that are provided in their own block or, 2 blocks away, so that these very, very little businesses can actually survive during a time like this, right? So I think all of those things is trends that we're going to see perhaps staying. The whole, connecting supply and demand, but in a way that really enables the very, very, very small businesses, right? So that I think is definitely going to stay.
Amazing. Yeah. So another question here. I see we have a couple of financial people coming from the financial institution. So how can financial institutions move faster for the customer with all its internal processes? He's given an example of security regulations, which are lengthy, to serve the external customers better, especially in COVID times.
Yeah.
So maybe you could give some examples, of the past similar processes that we have experienced in other industry.
Look, I think the main point is really, the whole industries are regulated, but financial service is not the only regulated industry, right? You look at Airbnb, it's hugely regulated. They operate in 170 markets, and they use one app to serve all of that, right? I think the main point is really developing an understanding on you are a provider of experiences. Forget about, and I always use this example, but if you look at a mortgage, right? Look, as an individual, the mortgage is not attractive to me. I don't think anyone wakes up excited that I'm going to sign my mortgage today and I'm super excited. I am excited about the house, about, what is important and relevant for me. So that thinking, I think, is actually changing a lot in financial services. And we see that there is a lot of thinking in what is really the ultimate customer goal, buying the house or saving for retirement or whatever it is, and really providing experiences that enable that, right? So I think in that way, the whole regulated versus not regulated just becomes a little bit less relevant, because what you get as a consumer is really aligned to what you want to achieve, right? Which is buy that house, right? But actually, it's changing a lot, and we are seeing amazing work being done in financial services, no matter what, whether it's retail banking or wealth or insurance. Amazing stuff happening there. Really, really transformational.
I was just trying to think of anything which surprised me during COVID from a bank and financial perspective. And I just recalled there are some of the banks who are actually trying to give health insurance based on your amount of money you have on your bank, and trying to, trying to help people out, right? To like your COVID insurance and so on all, which is pretty interesting because it goes back to the customer experience, right? I mean, you are looking at a bank from a financial point of view, but they actually stretched it out to a different part of your day-to-day life, which I thought was very interesting, and somewhere they could actually do real impact as well. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so one last question, given that we have 7 minutes. So something more lighthearted. So for both of you, give us some technology life hacks. What tools, platforms do you use in your work or personal lives that we might not have heard of?
Technology life hacks. Okay, how geeky can we get? Well, I think, look, I'll share something that Kaushik shared with me. So I've been, I'm a little bit into the whole home automation thing, and I was having my little Homebridge installation on my Raspberry Pi, struggling to get everything to connect to the Apple ecosystem and all that stuff. So he discovered Hoops, which is a really cool maintained version of that you guys can download. It's super easy to configure and allows you to basically keep everything connected, and it's amazing the amount of plugins that are out there. You can basically connect and automate like literally anything, right? So it's actually pretty cool. The most useless and stupid stuff can actually be done. But it's not very geeky, and since sometimes we have a little bit of time in our hands, it's actually a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah. And now that I have got you into Hoops, last 2 weeks I have been trying to go into Homebridge attack. So I might let me try it out for 1 more week. I think the Homebridge is getting even better now. So maybe that's the way to move. I see. I think those 2 communities on Reddit has been like looking at each other and trying to see who can do better. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, maybe a little hack, more like productivity one. Sometimes we get all these big screens, a lot of windows and whatnot. So if you guys use a MacBook, I've found this app called Haze Over that basically highlights the app you are using and basically layer over all the rest, so you can actually focus on what you're doing and not see everything else that is very distracting, like your message coming on Outlook or whatever, right? So Hazel, if you guys want to give it a try, it's pretty cool.
Cool.
Cool. Amazing. Thanks for answering all these questions, Zika and Kaushik. So any closing words from both of you?
Well, for me, I mean, thank you guys for making the time to join us. I think given what's going on in the world, it's very heartwarming that you guys take the time to share with us and be here. We really wanted to start this journey with Techractive as a way to engage with the community out there, not just inside Accenture Interactive, but really anyone out there. I think we'll be love to hearing from you guys. Get in touch. We are hiring, but that's not the main purpose of this. We really want to connect with the community and be part of this. So yeah, looking forward to more sessions and to hearing from you all.
Yeah. And yeah, just to add on that, right? I think Techractive, me and Iker has been talking about it for some time now. Genuinely, we wanted to create a platform where I think people from APAC actually, or even outside, right, can actually have a platform where they can present and they can share things. It's amazing that we are starting on this journey, and I'm really hoping that we can continue doing this. So thanks for joining today on the call. Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah. So just reiterating, right? Like, if you have any kind of question, I mean, we could only cover so much in this 1 hour session. But if you have any follow up question or inquiries, feel free to reach out to Ika and Kaushik. Their LinkedIn is on the Eventbrite page. And of course, we do have like continuous session because we want this initiative to be ongoing. So the next session will actually be on the art of blending design and technology. So if you enjoyed our session today, the next session will be as great, where we have Rebecca, Annika, and Joel, who are designers and developers from Accenture Interactive, who will be sharing on how the design language system would actually help us in our projects. So this event will be held on 1st June at the same time. If you are already subscribed to us on Eventbrite, you will receive an email on this. Otherwise, please check out also on the event page. Yeah, and then finally, we do appreciate any of this feedback on how this session is. On the last slide, Rebecca. So if you have any of this feedback, feel free to send it to us by scanning the QR code on the top right corner. If you would like to join us in the mailing list, also scan the QR code and you'll be able to join us. So if not, we wish you a very good evening and thank you for joining this session.
Thank you guys. Thanks everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.